Welcome everybody. We're in another live session here in the Visionary Arts Academy. And today we are going to be interviewing Amorastreya as we launch her course in the Visionary Arts Academy. It's an exciting day here because we're going to be basically getting into the details of sacred geometry and how to create it and how valuable and powerful it can be with your works of art, and actually show you many different techniques that Ka's used. And she's going to talk about some of the different processes that she's gone through in her process of creating her art, and different geometry she's used in doing that. So without further ado, welcome Amorastreya.
Thank you.
So good to have you here as always.
Thank you.
Yeah. And my co-host tonight, of course, is Josh Davis. Welcome, Josh.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Ka, really excited to be here with you today and super excited to be releasing the very first course in the Visionary Arts Academy. It's a super wonderful honor to have you be the one to be releasing the first course. So I'm really excited to hear what you have to say today.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, it's been a long time coming for sure. This is a big milestone for all of us here at the Academy, and a milestone for me personally as well. I haven't really considered myself much of a teacher in the past, but in the past few years, I've been asked to do some talks at festivals, some presentations, and started teaching a headdress workshop recently. So this was just another step in this line of projects that seem to be coming up on my plate, which are interesting and intimidating at first, but end up being really rewarding. And I feel like what I've ended up creating turned out really beautifully. I'm really excited about it. It's really flush full of good, juicy information. And I feel like it'll be beneficial for people with multiple different learning styles too. So yeah, let's just to share with you a little bit about how the course looks. It goes from numbers 1 to 10, and in each number, each lesson dedicated to each number has the geometries associated with the numbers. And so you get to, you get the philosophy. There's a beginning philosophical section that has different images of the specific numbers and the shapes, like what their meaning, what their magical significance is, how it works in nature, what their biggest attributes are, and how they work with the other numbers in the set. And from there, there's also some really beautiful imagery that's included in there to kind of give you like a nice idea for us artists, really visual learners, so it's very helpful there. The next section has a step-by-step tutorial, has written instructions with illustrated, it's like each step is illustrated, which was interesting to figure out how to do that, but it worked out really well, and I'm excited for you guys to check it out. And then the next step in that is a video. So if there's anything that might be confusing in the written illustrated section, there are videos for each of the geometries that you can watch. And I didn't speed through anything, so you can follow along, do it with me. I did fast forward through some erasing because you guys didn't need to see that, but yeah, I think it's going to be a really good course, and it's actually something that I kind of wish I had when I was learning sacred geometry. So I'm really excited to share it with you all.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ka. And just for those of you who are tuning in with us now on Facebook, we know the feed just started at a slight delay. So just want to welcome you guys if you're just tuning in and are watching this video. And today we're launching Ka Amorastreya's course in the Visionary Arts Academy, and it's called Sacred Geometry 1. And Ka, it's just such a huge, amazing course. And I've produced a lot of different courses for the different academies that I've opened, and usually like it's either just text heavy or video heavy, where it's just videos and a little bit of text. But your course is just a beautiful multimedia span. You introduce a lot of the different geometric concepts in text. You're showing images from different cultures around the world, connected to the geometries. And then you also have images that detail step by step through every single one of those steps of creating a different geometry. What was that like, actually, to draw and have to like freeze frame each one of your steps in the process? I'm just curious about that, because it was a lot of work.
Yeah, well, I think the hardest part was figuring out how that was going to happen. It was actually one of my biggest blocks in doing this course. Was figuring out how that was going to go down. Because I don't use Illustrator. Obviously, this is a hand-drawn thing. So it's like, well, how do I draw these shapes but make the next step obvious? Like these specific lines that the step is talking about. Like, how do I make that stand out? And I really wrapped my brain around it for a while. And yeah, to be honest, I think that was probably the biggest challenge, one of the biggest challenges that I faced in doing this. And it ended up turning out really well. Like I just, each new step I did in red pencil, so it stands out. And then I covered it in normal lead, gray, black lead, and then did the next step in red, covered it. So it was slow and tedious. And I took all the photos with my iPhone and it worked out great. Yeah, so I mean, once I started getting into it and figured out how it was going to go down, it ended up being a pretty smooth process.
So also, I know that you added in to not only the geometries of 1 through 10, but you also added in some kind of special additional geometries, like things that you can create using the general formula of how to draw the numbers. What are some of those extra geometries that you added in the course?
Yeah, well, each of these shapes can be constructed upon or deconstructed, and that's something that I got into a little bit in this course, but I didn't want it to get too overwhelming. I'd like to do a second course that goes more into that, on how to expand the basic shapes into it. But there are a few, like the triangle. We have a triangle, but then we split it into a triforce, and then you can keep deconstructing it down into a fractal pattern, and you can also expand it. The same thing with a square. There's a pattern called the Weave of the Goddess. Some people call it Athena's Web, but some people also say Athena's Web is related to a 7-pointed star, so there's some confusion around that. But for instance, Athena's, or the Weave of the Goddess, is what I based this image, this painting that I'm almost finished off of. It's just a square. You have an image that I sent to you, but it's just a square, and you divide it diagonally and vertically and horizontally, and you just keep deconstructing it from a square that's like this to this to this to this to this to this to this until you get really tiny, and it makes a really beautiful skeleton to expand off of. And this piece was the first time I ever worked with that geometry, and I found it to be a lot of fun and really beautiful. There's also
I'm gonna bring that one up real quick, just since you mentioned it, and just show our viewers here what you're talking about. This is a basic drawing of Athena's web. Is that correct?
Yeah, or Weave of the Goddess.
Okay, Weave of the Goddess. And then you use that to generate this drawing, this sketch. Is that right?
Yes. So what I did is I just took a square canvas and drew diagonal lines across the whole thing, and just deconstructed it like you saw in the previous image. And then I just started placing these different shapes along those points and lines. And what you see right now is the photo of, I used watercolor pencil over the lines of that template, and then ended up erasing the pencil, which I drew the original weave pattern on. And then, if you want to switch to the image below the weave image, you like build up layers of paint on top of it, and then you end up with something really beautiful like that. It's it's like, yeah, it's just these geometries are really amazing ways to get that perfect symmetry. Some people, especially in the visionary realm, there's a lot of mandala work, there's a lot of symmetry, there's a lot of pattern, and that's what sacred geometry, it's the structure behind the work. And I found that using sacred geometry, even if I don't quite have a complete idea of exactly what I want to paint, putting that first will allow the piece itself to hold a specific energy or structure, to where it automatically has a level of symmetry and a level of balance that makes the ending composition feel really good and precise. There's a nature expresses itself in perfect symmetry in a lot of ways. There is also chaos, like trees, are not perfectly symmetrical, but if you look at if you look at seeds, if you look at my face, if you look at biology in general, and crystalline structures, molecular structures, all the way to universal structures, there are a lot of geometrical templates that everything in creation is based off of. So what we're doing in sacred geometry is applying these same principles into art, because a piece of art is only as pleasing to the eye as much as it is able to mimic nature. And that's what makes it real to us. That's what makes it resonate for us. And so using the geometry enables that to take place.
Beautiful. Thank you. For those of you who are used to viewing our interview sessions, we're having a little bit more lag than usual today, and that's possibly just because we're running 2 video streams out of our tiny little DSL line instead of 1. So out here in the mountains of Western North Carolina. So thanks for just sticking with us and being patient, and hopefully the lag's not quite as bad for you as it is on my side viewing and watching Ka talk, but it's very entertaining. Yeah, so I wanted to ask you a couple more things, but Josh, did you have a question you want to come in with?
I think a lot of really what I like to know about geometry and where I like to see geometry utilized within paintings and other pieces of art is somewhat what you kind of just touched on. But I'm curious to know like a little bit more about how you would utilize geometry in a way that isn't necessarily so blatant. I know you mentioned having the idea of having one geometry in mind and utilizing that structure when you even conceptualize a painting. But how do you more literally use geometry in a way that isn't so like specifically presented to you in the painting?
Sure. Well,
Good call.
Yeah, I think ultimately the best examples of that are the Renaissance masters. I mean, it's like, yeah, they use sacred geometry as templates for their paintings, but none of it's obvious as it is in the visionary movement. I personally like to make it a little bit more obvious. I like to do the really frilly mandalas and stuff like that. However, I have done pieces where I've started it off looking for the golden mean in the canvas, just because that's, nature divides itself and like by the golden ratio. So it's like, okay, well, if I divide the canvas by the golden ratio, it's going to be, even more appealing. And, you know, we can do these different, like using the golden spirals in the painting to create this flow. Like it's a very common and well-known fundamental tool for artists and photographers alike to use this spiral to guide the eye along the image. And that's when the golden spiral geometry comes in handy. You know, it's like, okay, if we like have a canvas and we have a golden spiral on it, then we're going to put our like focal points along it, or like what we want the viewer to see first, probably in the center of the spiral, and then it can flow out from there. In the course, there are a couple examples of that in the introduction, but you can do a Google image search for sacred geometry in Renaissance art and get a ton of examples. You'll see a lot of Da Vinci's work and Michelangelo's work and a lot of different pieces of art that, you know, people have superimposed a geometrical template on top of, and you can see what you're talking about. I mean, for instance, like, you know, like my face, you know, there's a triangle here. You know, some people have superimposed like the pentagram over a cat's face. It's just, it's everywhere, you know, in architecture, it's present. Architecture is a little bit more obvious, but yeah, I just encourage people to research it and check it out online. I mean, the internet is full of resources like that. So yeah, I mean, the whole point of this work is to put a fundamental skeleton down before you start going into a piece of work. And I think that you can be really playful with it. I like to be really playful with it, just to kind of see like, oh, okay, well, what kind of geometry is really feeling resonant with me right now? Each of the numbers have a different meaning or a different energy that they represent. So even just putting that on the canvas and seeing what wants to come through, I mean, you could totally do a mandala and every point of the star can be something similar, or you can just put something representative or like a focal point on the painting. You know, if you had a nature scene, you can have like a flower here, or like the bird on the branch over here, and maybe the sun peeking through on this point of the star, you know, and it can be seemingly chaotic, right? But if that geometry is laying underneath, then it's still, you know, it's more of a subconscious way for the viewer to receive that geometry.
Are there some of those elements in I Wish or in one of the other paintings that I could bring up and show the viewers that you want to refer to?
Yeah, I think there's some of that in I Wish. That one's a little more literal. Okay, so you do actually have, you know, bare bones flower of life in the background, which Josh loves so much. It's kind of subtle. Yeah, there you go. So there's some. This was my first experiment in sacred geometry. I never tried any of it before, but I you know, took this canvas and divided it at the golden mean, right in the middle of where that dandelion pod is, and then did a circle, made a flower of life, put a circle around that, did a Vesica Pisces, and then started geeking out on Metatron's Cube down there, which I pulled out, you know, the dodecahedron and the star tetrahedron. You know, this is like pretty sacred geometric, you know, like geeky kind of piece. But, you know, what ended up happening was that there was this template, the structure for all of these symbols to fall into. And you know, I feel like this piece is kind of one of my like most like deep prayerful creations that have come through. And yeah, it really opened up my world into a whole new way. It was like the creative process just flew through me and out of me in a way that I hadn't experienced previously. So there's definitely something about that. I mean, I could really feel the just like this, it's like the creative force was just chomping at the bit to come out and let itself loose on the canvas, and it knew exactly where it wanted to go, and everything could line up, you know, right? It's like things line up really well, and it like our brains understand and perceive things when they are laid out geometrically. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely some obvious things and some things that are more hidden in there, but I would say this one, I mean, this one's not necessarily subtle at all.
Right.
Yeah. I think in the, you know, the gift of life that you mentioned, that one is both obvious and subtle. You can definitely obviously see the distinct mandala aspects of it. What you probably don't notice is the spirals that are there. You know, I use 2 opposing golden ratio spirals that the crow's face flows along, and that water droplet is right in the middle of another one, you know. So, I mean, that was definitely a part of the composition and where I started. But, you know, that's something that you wouldn't pick out. There's also the same correlation in like around the dragonfly. You know, I used a decagram, but then kind of started to deconstruct all of the pentagrams that are in the decagram, like the 10-pointed star. So the pentagram is a 5-pointed star. So inside of each of those, the pentagram naturally has a golden ratio to it. Like one of the triangles at the tip of the stars is like the smaller part of the ratio to the rest of the piece. So, you know, you can deconstruct it down and down and down and down and down to get in until you get, it just keeps going into that same ratio. And that's why the golden spiral is actually in the number 5 segment, because 5 contains within it this really beautiful ratio that life and biology is built off of. So you probably wouldn't notice that in that geometry, but it's in there. You know, it's like those little steps that, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of hard to describe. There's I don't know if you got that one. I sent an image. It's in the course where I actually, I had taken a photo of the bare bone structure of that piece and put it in there with, you know, the first layer of the crow and the dragonfly.
Do you remember which lesson that's in?
It's in the conclusion.
It's actually also been posted on the Facebook page.
Yep, it's there too. Yeah.
I'll pull it up from the conclusion real quick. Hold on. Yeah. Here we go.
I'm gonna grab my sketchbook real quick just so I can.
Great. Yeah, as you can see, what she's referring to is this piece right here, which is this bare bones structure of some of the geometries that are forming the different elements inside of this painting. You can see the radial around the crow. You can see the smaller geometry around the water droplet, little hexagonal form. And this looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's a decagram going on around the.
Yeah, so what I was talking about is you see how around the crow and around the dragonfly, there are those points. And each ring, like when you go to the crow, they get smaller as they go in. The distance between them gets smaller as it goes in towards the crow. And on the dragonfly, they get smaller as it goes out from the dragonfly. So the ratio of those points is actually all done in the golden ratio. Beautiful. Right, which makes it gives this mandala a little bit more of a pleasing aspect to it, but that's a subtle form.
Yeah, you can see it in the final version there, how these are kind of angled in energies, and these are expanding out. Very beautiful. So tell us a little bit about, unless you want to jump into something else, tell us a little bit about some of the kinds of pitfalls that people can run into when they're doing, when they're drawing these different geometries. Because I know that some are more difficult than others, right?
For sure. Yeah, there's a few of them that are harder than others. I find that where I mess up the most is by going too fast. Or it's interesting, like you have to be really, really detail oriented and specific to get it right, especially if you're working small. The smaller you work, the harder it is because there's more room for error when you're trying to get on a point. Like you want your compass needle and your measurements to be exact, because if you diverge just a tiny bit, and you'll probably realize this when you go through the course, it's something that happens. If you diverge just a tiny bit, then it can screw up the whole thing and can be extremely frustrating. So that's probably the main one. I find it helpful to work with mechanical pencil on it, or like keep your lead really sharp, because that precision is one of the biggest keys to making it work out in your favor and keeping it fun. Because it's like some of these pieces are pretty easy. Some of them are a lot of work and have a lot of steps. And one of the most challenging things is like, you put all this work into creating this geometry, and then some point along the way, we're a little bit off, and doing your circle, and maybe you didn't want to erase all the lines and do it again. You're like, oh no, that'll be okay. It's just a little bit off. And then, but you have to go off of a point that one made, and then you use that as a measurement piece. And then by that point you're way off, and it's not worth it, Yeah. And then you're like, this doesn't look right. What's wrong? And then you have to start all over, or like erase, between these different lines, which is crazy.
I'm sure that can be very challenging.
Yeah, that's a huge one. And making sure you have good tools, like having a compass that stays in a good angle, like a nice compass is really important. You don't want one that, if you're gonna put pressure on it, it's gonna slowly open up, because that's gonna mess up your measurements and circles also.
That's a good cue. So a good compass, the sharp point, and what are some ideal kind of tools that people could find? What do you have a brand that you would suggest, or anything like that?
We actually did have a question in the comments of one of the posts that I made about the course, suggesting that people did not have any ideas of which kind of compass to buy, or having problems with their equipment not working as well as it should to provide the accuracy. So I think this will be helpful.
Yeah. Well, I can show you what I've got. Let's see. Hang on a sec.
And we pan through the studio, looking at the different areas of what you can't see is all the drawers that exist in this.
There are so many
cabinets full of drawers, and other closets full of drawers.
You know what? The compass that I mainly use isn't here, but I can post that actually in the academy and in the lounge. You want something that has one of these adjusters on it, right? Because it's not, I can pull on this, I can push on this, it's not going to change its angle. This needle here, so it rotates around really nice, and a good sharp needle, because if you're using one of those pre-K or grade school compasses, if it has a blunted point on there, it could slip really easily. So for precision, I'd say this. The compass that I have, and I don't know exactly where I put it. It might be in my travel case of stuff, but that one has it has a sharp needle. It's removable, and it also has a mechanical pencil here. I love it. Like, my lead never goes dull. And it also has an extender arm on it, so you can put the needle out so you can draw larger circles, which is extremely beneficial.
So
angle can get limiting, especially when you're working on a canvas. You know, you want to draw bigger circles, and you can't if your thing goes like that.
So the needle should basically be sharp enough that pretty much if you fly through the Dominican Republic, they may confiscate it. Is that correct?
Yeah, you know it. You've seen it happen.
I've only seen you lose one needle, but
Well, Hawaii, right?
I thought that was on the way to Costa Rica in the Dominican
No,
Republic, flying
that
through
was
there.
actually, God, I don't remember. But I have lost compass needles. They do. If you're flying with a compass, it's just good to pull it out of your bag and stick it in the bin, because they will search your stuff in order to find it.
And somehow I always fly with an X-Acto knife, and the X-Acto knife never gets taken. It's always in my backpack. It's in the carry-on. But yes, a good sharp needle definitely is very important.
Yeah, or like when you fly with it, just put the needle in another spot, because I've had to beg TSA agents to keep my compass, but I've had to actually throw away the needle, even though I've asked, like, can I just put the needle somewhere else? And what can I do with this tiny little, yeah, it's silly, but you know, good tip, good traveling tip for you traveling geometers out there.
Yeah. So we have a question from Dome. She asks, do you work in really thin layers in order to see the guidelines? How do you ensure that you don't lose your guides once you've been painting over it?
Yes, I do work in really thin layers. All of my paintings are they're done in thin layers of glazes. So, but I would say if you were working more in more thick layers, I would say you'd probably have to just like keep adding, you know, a little spot of paint, or yeah, some way to guide it. I mean, sometimes I'll accent, you know, like a little white dot of paint, you know, so I don't lose the main points of the geometries that I've created to guide. But yeah, all of my pieces are done with pretty thin layers of paint.
Did you say you use spots of heat?
No, spots of like white, like a lighter color pigment.
Ah, I see. You use white pigment to dot and position the spots. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I would love to give people just a little bit of a view of your course, unless there's any other kind of pitfalls that you want to cover around challenges. I know we got the compass, and obviously the compass is very important, and the other materials that people use in the process. But is there any other kind of challenges that people should watch out for in the process of going through and creating their geometries?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is just make sure your compass angle is not changing, is staying solid throughout the whole thing. I think I pretty much covered it. I mean, another thing too that I think is a good thing to take note of is when you're first learning these, it's okay to draw heavy-handed because you're learning the structure. But later on, if you want to remove a lot of the guidelines away, so you're left with the star, with the main geometry that you're trying to draw, you're going to want to draw those very lightly so that they're easily erasable and you can get rid of them once you're finished with them. I think that's another good tip. Another one, you know, it's kind of funny. It's super simple, and I actually talk about this in my course in this section about the circle, which is, you know, just drawing a nice relaxed circle changes a lot, because I used to try to draw circles with my compass where, you know, I'm like straight up and down. There's a little bit of pressure on the lead, and, you know, I'm noticing my compass is skipping around the page. It's making these lines. It's awkward. Sometimes, you know, the lead sticks to the paper and the needle slips out. So I just say, like, you know, one of the main simplest pieces that you can do, and I'll show you right here. This drawing pad is taking your compass like that and leaning it forward and just letting the thing glide around. And nice and relaxed like that, instead of, you know, trying to make it go straight up and down. It's just awkward. So yeah, doing that, kind of dancing with it, I find, yeah, I did it the hard way for a long time, and so it just saved me the hassle there.
That's a beautiful illustration. And yes, there's a reason why you did a video even just for the circle, right? This is how to draw a circle.
I don't want you to waste your time doing the stupid stuff I used to do.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So for those of you that are interested in doing this course with Ka, basically, if you're a member already, and you know you're used to being in the dashboard, obviously inside of our event today, this interview event, there's a button that just says "Get access to the course." You'll also see a new link at the top of the page called "Join Courses." And either one of those will take you to this page. And for the next 5 days or so, we're doing a launch discount to try to, you know, help our membership get in there as much as possible. If you are a member of the Academy, you get 10% off in addition to this 25% off discount. And all you have to do is click Get Access. And there's some more information and our lovely Sacred Geometry badge that you'll earn when you complete the course. And once you click Get Access, it's just a quick checkout process. And then you'll receive an email and a thank you page that'll give you access straight to the course homepage itself. And of course, it will also, in the My Courses link, you'll see that there's new updates here. And you'll be able to access the Sacred Geometry course right from the My Courses link. And you'll have the entry to Ka's course, and it'll show you a lot of the geometry here. You'll see sort of the collection of all the different lessons in her course. So everything from the point, the line, the curve, to the Vesica Pisces, to the square and tetrad, and Athena's web, or the goddess weave, is a part of that. The pentad includes aspects of the golden mean ratio, and I can show you a little bit on that front here. Share that screen with you. And as she was saying, like inside the pentad, there's not only kind of these cultural examples and nature examples of where the pentagram is played out, but also the golden spiral and the ways that the golden spiral plays out in our lives. And then she gets into the actual process of drawing a pentagram. And she takes you through with text and with drawings, step by step, each one of the parts of the process, as you're building the different elements and components, all the way until eventually you build the whole pentagram. And there's also videos embedded in each of these, which take you step by step through her process, and show you every step along the way, basically how to build each of these geometries. So it's super cool course and really fun. And I had a blast actually just going through it and playing through it, and adding the videos and editing on the images. And she gives you a lot of bonus geometries, as I call them. She says, well, they're just kind of par for the course. But to me, they're really bonuses, which is how to do golden rectangles and how to do Metatron's Cube, and a lot of really other very, very interesting things. And there's also a Q&A lounge at the bottom of any page that you get to in the course. To move on, you'll just click Mark Complete. But you can also go back to the Q&A lounge if you have questions. And periodically throughout the week, Ka will be going to that lounge and basically answering questions that you may have from that place. And when you mark complete, it takes you straight into the next lesson. And I'll show you also a little bit of lesson 6, which is the hexad flower of life. And this one's super cool. It's got all kinds of really beautiful geometry and beautiful imagery. Ka, do you want to share anything about this one?
Yeah, this one's probably the most, it's the longest one. Yeah, it kind of goes into multiple facets. You know, there's the basic hexad, and then you have the all famous flower of life. It's like sacred geometries, you know. What do you call that? It's like everyone knows about it. Everyone knows about the flower of life. So I teach you how to do that. And then Metatron's Cube is really cool because that's where you get all of the three-dimensional platonic solids. They're all can be extracted through drawing the Metatron's Cube. So I put it in there. I didn't do a video of that one. Sorry, guys. I had already pretty much completed the course, and I was like, you know, I should put Metatron's Cube in here. But yeah, I'm done producing videos. That was a lot of work. So worth it though. Yeah, but if you have questions on it, you know, I'm available to answer them if any of it looks too confusing. But it's pretty self-explanatory. Yeah.
Yep. And now that I've unlocked the course lounge, it won't give me a 404 page, and this is actually what you'll see, which is basically this lounge page, a quick button to get back to the course. And there's a easy discussion area right here where you can post and write. And you can also click this and upload images. So as you're drawing geometries, it's great. So just take some pictures with your camera, sync them in, email them to yourself, whatever's the easiest for you. You can also take the course through mobile or through iPads. So you can take pictures and upload them straight from there. But it's super fun and very, very easy to get in here and to share some things with people throughout the course. And we recommend as part of the course process to really, you know, capture your process, like document your process and share it with the other people taking the course, because it's just way more fun that way for everyone. So yeah, that's a little bit of a sneak preview and of what we've got going on there. And I hope that you guys come in and check out the course. Josh, is there any other Q&A things that we haven't gotten to, or other questions that you have to ask?
Yeah, we do have another question from Gabriel. Asks, do you have any tricks or tips to not actually like poke through the canvas with the needle of the compass? Have you?
Yeah, that's a tricky one, right? Sometimes it's kind of funny. I've definitely poked through canvas with that. You know, you can obviously put like, you know, another piece of fiber or fabric or cardboard or like whatever or tape, you know. Oh, it's interesting because I would normally end up with a hole there, a tiny one, but I have to say that also helps me find my center of that circle later. Might be like bad artist etiquette of me. I don't know. I kind of like end up filling it in with paint later on, but I make sure it's between the weaves, so I'm not actually ripping any threads there. Like, yeah, I don't know if that's what you're supposed to do, but it happened, and I actually found it to be beneficial in the end because I'm like, oh shoot, like, where's that point? Where's the middle of my circle? I'm like, oh, I can see this tiny little indentation, or I hold it up to the light, and it's this one little star, and I'm like, oh, there it is. Okay, cool. I can go back in and work with it. So I'm really not exactly the expert. Sorry.
All right, well, still something to be explored.
Right.
Let us know if you guys find out any great tricks in the lounge there of this geometry course.
Yeah, we have a lot of great artists that are in here with us, you know, and pretty much all of the art jam sessions that you get access to and you're a member. And I love seeing the work that Jamie's doing, and Lauren, Nara Lauren, Tony Taylor, Some of you guys are viewing this right now with us live, so thanks for being here. And if any of you have tips on how to not poke through the canvas, we would love to hear them. It's, you know, art is a crowdsourced adventure, I think, and we all learn from each other, and that's really the heart behind this academy, and where we're all coming from is really just helping support each other, share the gifts and the wisdom, the knowledge that we have to share with this community. I think it's really beautiful to see all these visionary artists coming together and co-creating and developing courses that to really share their knowledge and their wisdom with each other, because there's not really any other school online that's sharing visionary arts concepts in a deep way that also profoundly connects to our power as creators and who we are in the world and the capacity we have to generate change in the world through our art. So, you know, while you can take art academy courses in drawing or sketching, it's not quite the same as getting it from the energy that some of these teachers like Ka has, and Mark Henson has, who's next up for a course release. So, but Ka, we're so excited to be releasing this with you right now.
Thank you. Likewise. And there's one thing I want to say about that, which I found was really awesome in preparing this course, was being able to touch on the mystical properties of these numbers and talk about their spiritual qualities, their magical qualities, how they've been worked with through different traditions and wisdom keepers in different times, through different civilizations throughout time on Earth. And to know that that's not going to be a problem, that people aren't going to be weirded out by that this community is one that, you know, it's like an all-embracing community, and is very, like, the visionary community has always been very inclusive, and it's all about interconnection. You know, it's like, what are the symbologies from all these different cultures, and what do they mean? And like, because all of it is a whole, all of it is a part of the entire one, right? And so it's like, you can share this little piece from like, oh, this culture uses like this number in this certain way, or, you know, you start to see this more in like the numbers of 7 and 9 and 10, where these different religions have these, like these numbers start showing up really heavily in these different religions. And it's awesome because it's like, oh, well, this religion has, you know, the like, it's like the 9 dragons here, and then like the 9, you know, faces of this deity. And it's like, you know, this is information that the visionary community is going to savor and appreciate, versus, you know, more of a mainstream program. You might have to worry a little bit more about triggering people, about, you know, I just felt really grateful, you know, being able to put this all-inclusive interfaith, interspiritual, interconnected information and know that it's going to be savored and appreciated. And that's what I think is a really beautiful and unique aspect about the community that we're in.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful. Well, it's such a pleasure. We had one more question, but it's about wrapping geometries around forms, as I know you've probably seen Mars One doing at different times, and as this viewer has mentioned. But I imagine that actually, you know, wrapping a geometry around a sphere or other kinds of morph geometries like that might be something for sacred geometry level 2. Ka, what do you think?
For sure, that kind of thing is going to happen at a later date, because that way you're mixing sacred geometry and perspective. So we'll get there. Just right now, you know, we're starting with a lot of the fundamental basics. But yeah, you know, like one of the things I do want to see happen in the future, whether I teach that or whether another artist wants to step up to the plate and bring it forth, is, yeah, like taking different geometries and, you know, like tilting it in a perspective to where you have planes with different geometries on it. And you can do the grid work to make that look really realistic. Spheres are really hard. That might be a piece. Well, I know Mark's teaching some spherical perspective at some point. So there's that. I guess you can, yeah, you're just gonna have to figure out the points along there. And I mean, I'm not that good at the spherical stuff yet.
You should pull up the Naga that's behind you, because I've seen the bottom of that one. And if you're willing, maybe just show a little bit of some of the geometry work you're doing on the plane at the base of that one, because that's very applicable if people can see that. Yep.
So there's just a little bit of, it's a breath of the compassionate pattern there. It's not very detailed or filled in, but this whole piece was started off of doing a heptagram sketch. So here's a good one for you, Josh. I mean, it's definitely in there, and you can see it. It's not all covered up yet.
Yeah.
It's not going to be, but you can see this 7-pointed star. This goes up to her chin. This part, this angle of the star, goes along the sides of her breasts here. As it goes bigger, it's just one star, and I kept connecting these different lines for one shape. And then, where this one goes through, it's where her third eye is. This part of the star comes up here. So it all kind of fits in and allows for more symmetry. But I've kind of been playing around with how much of it I want to keep visible and how much of it I want to let fade into the background. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Thanks for being willing to share. I know that one's still hidden in the back of the studio.
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to share about this course that I'm really excited as well is that, a lot of my sacred geometry learning came from the book, The Beginner's Guide to Constructing the Universe, which I highly recommend for anybody who wants to deepen their journey with sacred geometry. They get super deeply philosophical. I felt like in my own course, I didn't want to go too deep in there, because if you really want to go down the rabbit hole, that's a really good place to go with it. And I have included a lot of the exercises that I learned from that book in my course. There are also techniques that I've learned elsewhere that I have found to, either be more accurate, be easier in some ways, or just different in the course too. And so it's not just like, here's the one way to draw this shape. Like, there's 2 ways that I have in there to draw a 7-pointed star. One of them requires some adjustment. One of them actually ends up getting pretty on point, surprisingly precise, which is awesome. And there's 3 different techniques to draw an enneagram, a 9-pointed star. And there's kind of the quick and easy way, but you also have to do compass adjustments in the end to get it to work out right. And there's a second one that's like, you still have to do adjustments. It's not as much. And then there's a third process, which is a lot of steps. It's kind of crazy. But you end up with a pretty much perfect placement of points, 9 points around a circle to draw your star. So there's a lot of different techniques to choose from, which I felt like was important to put in there, so it's like, you kind of just play around with each of them and see which one you like the most, and you're not limited to just one way of doing something. I like options. Options are good.
Options are good. And you have multiple triangle techniques. You do static squares and dynamic squares. It's an awesome course, Ka. And thanks so much for taking this time to do this interview with us. And thank you everyone who's come in to watch this live session. And great to have you here as always. And we hope you guys will come and join the course. So go to the event page, click the join course button. We have a few days where the course will be available at 25% off. And if you become a member, which you can become a member for as little as $1 a month, then you can also get an additional 10% off the course from that. So come and join us. Come check out the Academy. Ka, go ahead.
I was going to say, and for the membership access, which, yeah, it's $1 a month, but you also get access to all of the live interviews we do with other artists and the art jams.
That's right. And we have some really good ones coming up. Do you remember who's next, Ka? I can check the schedule real quick here.
I think it's Jonas.
Oh yeah, we have Jones and Jessica Pearlstein on the 3rd.
Yep, Jonas is on February 16th, and we'll have that event posted shortly here. We've just been working on getting the course stuff dialed. And Jessica Pearlstein, February 23rd, which is on a Thursday. She is going to be doing an art jam with us. Emily Kell, we've got March 2nd, doing an interview and art jam at 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock Eastern time. And then Justin Totemikal, March 22nd, we've got an interview with him and an art jam an hour later there too. So definitely come in and get on the membership, because the art jams are super fun, and doing these with the artists. And those of you who have been attending the art jams, you can of course share your feedback. We'd love for you to share on Facebook, what your experience was with those. If there's anything we can do to improve any of these interviews or art jams, please let us know. We're really in here in service to the community. That's the main point. And to support the artists that are doing so much to get their artwork out there in the world, helping them to create these courses so they get their information out there, and also helping them just share their work with this community and with the people by recording these interviews and doing these art jam sessions to get them more connected. So we've got plenty of space in the art jams. Come in and fill them up. Right now they're usually about 20 something people, but we'd love to have more. So come in and join us for those. Josh, Ka, any last words for this live session?
Just say I'm really thankful for this opportunity, and want to thank you and Josh both for encouraging me to do this. It's something that, like I said, I haven't done before and didn't know that I could do, and it turned out really amazing, and I'm excited about that, and really excited to share it with the rest of you. It's good stuff.
Yay. Thank you. It's an honor.
Yeah, thank you, God. Yeah, it's been a wonderful journey up to this point, and I'm really excited to be releasing this course with you, and really excited to see what people create with it and the things that they learn.
Thanks so much, Josh. Thanks for being my partner in arms here, creating and working on this academy. Going to make this thing serve and fly for the masses soon enough. So thank you guys so much for joining us once again. Thank you again, Ka, for being with us, and look forward to seeing you guys on the next live session in the Visionary Arts Academy. Take care and aloha. Blessed be.